As a new mom, I was regularly harassed by unsolicited parenting advice from family, friends, neighbors, the lady in the checkout line, websites, billboards, even the neighbor's 5-year-old daughter. Now, this overload of information is common for new parents, and while every piece of advice is well-meaning, parents are tasked with sifting through the information to decide which pieces of advice are worth following. One piece of advice sticks out in my mind as having been shouted from all 4 corners of the earth. Don't let your child play video games. Now, even though my husband and I are both gamers, we followed this advice with our eldest. We decided not to buy a tablet, so it was never a temptation through her toddler years. We waited until she was asleep before pulling out the Nintendo, and we limited her exposure to kid-friendly apps on our smartphones. Now my little girl is in 1st grade, and I'd like to shout from these advice-giving mountaintops that this statement is wrong. While our society continues to parade this anti-video game ballad, our children are missing out on the opportunity to reap physical, mental, and social benefits regular video game play has to offer and build a better foundation for their lives. Now, stick with me and I'll show you how. But first, it's important, as with any other pursuit in life, to practice moderation in all things. This is true of video games, baseball, TV, how much you eat, and even how much you go to church. We just got to make sure we get that out of the way, and then we can focus on what video games have to offer. Now, typically when video games and children are listed together, we repeatedly hear cautionary claims such as, video games are making children overweight. Recently, the game industry has produced several kinetic gaming systems. The newest of these models include Xbox One, which is paired with the Kinect, and that was released in 2012. Sony's PlayStation 4, which is paired with Move controllers, and that was released in 2013. And then Nintendo recently released their Switch earlier this year. And in addition to these, there's also the uprising of personal virtual reality consoles. Now, the world experienced in real time how video games can move the masses with the release of Pokemon Go, July 2016. This free-to-play, location-based augmented reality game has over 750 million downloads to date, according to DMR business statistics. Pokemon Go's simple design engages trainers of all ages to search physically for the equipment and Pokemon needed to progress in the game. Now, each of these games encourage movement, and as reported by CBS, they offer a fun approach, motivating even heavier children to slim down. Next, who hasn't heard that video games will ruin your eyesight? Brain scientist Daphne Bevelier and her team measure the impact of video games on their brain. She demonstrates the basics of their experiments in her TED Talk, which is titled Your Brain on Video Games. Their studies have concluded that playing 5 to 15 hours of action-based video games each week correlates with better vision and improved ability to see more detail in the context of a cluster. Our next accusation to tackle is, are video games making kids dumb? Maternity Glow, and The Parents magazine, each of which is geared towards new parents, but particularly moms, have published similar articles which list intellectual benefits that children can glean from gaming. Now, among these benefits they listed are improved memory, improved creativity and problem-solving abilities, improved reading comprehension, improved attention and concentration, the ability to think more quickly, how to fail, and then how to recover from failure. Now, in addition to these, video games can get kids interested in culture, history, and sports, all while improving their fine motor abilities. Gamers struggling to socialize is perhaps the better known of video game stereotypes. Older generations, aka the parents or grandparents, believe video games is an isolating activity. Children, however, see gaming as a social activity. At face value, video games are what every child is talking about in the lunchroom, on the playground, and even what they color pictures of in their spare time. Now, Dr. Jane McGonigal, she's a game designer who promotes utilizing video games for the good of the real world, shared that 70% of children play multiplayer video games on local stations, which means there are multiple kids in the same room playing the same game. Parents.com advocates that children who play video games in groups, whether local or online, take turns leading and following, depending on who has specific skills needed in that game. Conjoined with opportunities to lead, children have opportunities to teach. Nikki of Palo Alto Research Center reported to Parents.com that roughly 1/3 of the children they studied say that they like to play video games in part because they like to teach others how to play. Now, each of these benefits can start improving the life of a child during their first round of gameplay. As mentioned before, the benefits continue past childhood. Kids who play video games typically become interested in technology at an early age, but it's often out of necessity. If your kid wants to keep up with the newest games, eventually they'll need to upgrade or repair his or her gaming station, which gives them real-life skills of troubleshooting and building workstations. Many players also write modifications. They're often called mod packs, and this lets them add their own twists or features to their favorite games. Now, creating a mod pack is kind of like making a mini video game. It requires research, planning, coding, and designing graphics before it can be implemented. By building a successful mod pack is significant enough of an achievement to list on a resume. And even if your child doesn't wind up in a technology-related field of employment, most careers rely on technology. By playing video games, your child will have a head start in their careers just by being familiar with technology. So, how can you implement these benefits in a child's life? Ask a child who's close to you, whether it's a son, daughter, brother, sister, or even a grandchild, what their favorite video game is. If the title is new to you, ask them to show you how to play. If you are already familiar with it, ask them to play with you. Then, as you start playing together, conversations will come more easily. You may find that you could have a new hobby to do together, and you'll grow closer together overall. What's more, as you spend time playing video games with a child, you can reap those same mental, physical, and social benefits we covered today. It even is shown to help fight off Alzheimer's. In this technological age, it is imperative that we teach our children how to succeed using technology, starting in our homes. So, do your part today and ask a child if they'd like to play. Thank you for your time.